Driving Basics 16, mini roundabouts, priorities. Oh, what a subject. What a subject. A massive area of confusion, poor knowledge, and bad attitudes, actually, of many people. Now, to be clear, many people don't have bad knowledge and etc. But this is probably an area where I think the bad knowledge, etc., is a bit more prominent. I think a bit more people show this lack of knowledge. It's kind of inspired from a driving lesson I did in Bury St Edmunds last week, and one of my learners, we were doing mini roundabouts, and we were turning right at a particular mini roundabout, and this happened.
Should let you go. There's where you're giving way to. Just gotta watch him, yeah.
And I was kind of curious at that point. And so me and my learner agreed that we're going to circle round and have another go. And then this happened.
Where are you giving way to? Good. What is going on?
And by this point, I was starting to think, well, what's going on? So we did it again, and this one wasn't awful. And I will analyse this in a bit more detail. Personally, I wouldn't have emerged, but it's not awful. Now, it must be said, we had a right signal in both of those, or all three of those clips. My signal is actually pretty quiet in this Mazda, so you don't always, I think, hear it on the dash cam footage. But we then circled round, and there were two more incidents. Every time we had a problem at this roundabout, we circled round again. And if you watch the white Fiat and then the black BMW, they're approaching at a speed, it's like they haven't acknowledged what we're about to do at all. And they then absolutely have to slam the brakes on. It doesn't show up as well in the dash cam footage. Here's the Fiat. And then here's the BMW, and this one really got me because afterwards the BMW gave us that kind of gesture, like, what are you doing? And I was sat there thinking, what is going on? And I analysed it with my learner. Now, most people at that particular roundabout don't turn right, and I do think there's an element of what I call kind of zombie driving, which is where people are not thinking at all. They're thinking about the work day that they've got to do. They're thinking about, what they had for breakfast, and they're not thinking about the driving itself. But my learner kind of correctly pointed out, she goes, but I don't get it, because I always look for a signal as I approach a mini roundabout. Are they not looking for a signal? And at that point, I had to simply say to her, do you know what? I don't even know. Because she was baffled by it. I was pretty baffled by it, to be fair. But it stems from a lack of knowledge, understanding, possibly attitude. But it definitely is a common issue at mini roundabouts. And I see dashcam groups, so like I said, I keep on the comments to see what's kicking off and what kind of attitudes people are having. And I'll put a few of the comments up. In similar situations when things like this have happened on dashcam groups, you see a lot of people say things like, well, their wheels were on first. And the other common comment is, there's no priority, you're both opposite each other, you're both on each other's right. And this is where it stems from, these kind of situations, from people's poor knowledge. First myth to get rid of, right? My wheels were on first. I hate that phrase, okay? It stems from where the highway code says about, we give way to the right. Normally it's vehicles already on the roundabout. That makes some people think that if they haven't put their wheels on yet, you don't need to give way to them. That's absolutely incorrect, okay? You give way to the right. So if someone is approaching from your right and your emerge is going to affect that person, you don't emerge. It's that simple. There is nothing anywhere that says chuck your wheels on first and then you won't have a problem because everyone has to give way to you. I mean, genuinely think about that. Mini roundabout, if it was whoever chucks their wheels on first has priority, as so many people are commenting in some of the dashcam groups, it would be a race to get to that roundabout, and it would be absolute carnage. That isn't how a roundabout is meant to be at all. If that's your attitude, it's wrong. The second myth to get rid of is when you're opposite someone, there's no priority. The only way that can be applicable is if you have two cars opposite each other that both wish to turn right, okay? Because in that case, sometimes the roundabouts are kind of big enough to allow you both to go on at the same time, and that is possible if you both go around the centre circle, as per Driving Basics 5, I think it was. But very often the roundabouts are so small that it's actually better for one of you, you just come to an understanding and one of you goes first. Happy days, look, everyone goes on. Now, the DVSA official guide to driving pinpoints this perfectly. Mini roundabouts, and it says, be aware of people coming towards you that want to turn right, give way to them. There it is. It's simple in black and white, and that is how a roundabout works. If you think of a normal roundabout, you give way to your right, exit or exits, there can be more than one, and then you give way to people coming around the inside lane, usually with a right signal. Sometimes people don't, of course. And when you get to a mini roundabout, that doesn't change. You give way to the right, and you give way to people coming around the inside lane or the centre circle. So what I tend to teach my learners, if they're struggling with this, because certain roundabouts can be laid out a bit funny, look at the centre circle and then look to the right of that. And you give way to whatever's circulating around that circle or coming on from your right. That's the simplest way of thinking about it. But that's the priority. So none of those cars in the video should have been proceeding with us doing what we're doing. But I would suggest a poor lack of knowledge, mainly, is to blame for that. Interesting one just while we're here. So Victoria Road has freshly had the chippings put on. I can't stand these. Now there's a sign here that says skid risk, max speed 20. Learners I know get a bit confused by these. These are not legally, you have to do 20. That is advisory that your maximum speed along here is 20 miles an hour. I'm doing that currently because it's pretty fresh. The stones I can feel are nice, horrible and loose. So there is a skid risk, but also I don't want to damage my car. So I am doing the advised speed. If I get to one of these and actually it's completely free and as normal, then I will do nearer to the speed limit. I've literally just returned from London yesterday, from the Foo Fighters gig. If there are any fellow Foo Fighter fans on my channel, make yourself known. If you were at the gig, let me know. It was the one on Thursday, I think. Yeah, Thursday. No, Wednesday. Oh God, whenever it was, Thursday. But what a show! Learning to walk again. I believe I've waited long enough. So I'm coming to a mini roundabout now. It's the one by Tesco and Dis. There's no road on my right. So what I'm going to be looking out for specifically is someone coming towards me with a right signal. And if there are, because they're going into Tesco, then they have priority. Now look at the roundabout. If you look at to the right of the circle, anything circulating around that, I need to give way to. That's again the simplest way of looking at a mini roundabout. So the next roundabout I'm going to use to turn right. So there's no road on my left, so technically no one coming towards me should have a right signal to go round. They sometimes do, because the road's slightly off to the side, slightly past 12 o'clock. Some people think they're turning right. They're not, they're going ahead. But no one should have the signal. I need to be aware of people doing U-turns, for example. There's actually no one coming towards me, annoyingly. But anyone there should give way to me. There's no one on my right, so I come round. Driving Basics 2, I think that was. Stopping at a stop sign. The thing that never happens. Dearie me. And that's honestly because your suitcase doesn't go well on the cobbles rather than carry it on two wheels. You have to carry it on the road. It just shows the attitudes of people, though, isn't it? Like I understand them suitcases, right? They're on four wheels, but if you carry it like a two-wheel suitcase, that will go on cobbles, rather than wheeling it along the road selfishly, because you want a smoother ride for your suit. Honestly, people are the enemy. That's something I noticed as well, is that cyclists don't seem to give signals anymore. Has anyone else noticed this? Especially at roundabouts. If you're a cyclist, you should go around the outside, holding your right arm out to say you're still coming around the roundabout. And no, I honestly see none of them do it. And like the gentleman in front of them, it's not the end of the world, but there's just no signal. Like no one seems to signal on a bicycle anymore. Is that just me? I know I've got a couple of bike riders that do follow the channel. If you ride a bike, could you let me know? Do you still give signals? Do you notice that other people don't? That'd be interesting. There's him. Look behind him. Let's see if he signals. He looks like he's going to be going right. No signal at all. Everyone's just meant to assume we know where you're going, I guess. Interesting. This is that for me though is again with priorities like rule H2 at junctions giving way to pedestrians, and rule H1 about the hierarchy of road users. That's the reason why, is because a lot of people make mistakes, and if they're more vulnerable, we should be looking out for them, and keeping them safe. We're all human beings. We all make mistakes. I make mistakes, 100%. Look, not very many when I'm driving, luckily, because of course it's my job. But I do make mistakes, and I appreciate when other people help with my mistakes. So I'm going to put the car in front's got a right signal. That's good. Now this car's got a right signal, so I'm going to be a bit wary of them. Yeah, doing a U-turn. There we go. And now I'm going to go. And this car not up for it. And there is again rule H2, which I'll do another driving basics video about. They're on a roundabout, so you need to consider absolutely everything with a roundabout. There will be emails from DVSA representatives. There will be emails from Department of Transport representatives. I've got one of those that say yes, H2 is applicable. Then they say but we need you to consider everything. And as I said, I will do a proper video on this soon. One of the driving instructors that's quite big on YouTube, I mentioned him before. Well, not mentioned him, I'm not saying his name. He actually commented on on my video I did on H2 recently. And he said, maybe you've got this wrong, maybe you've misinterpreted. I've got from the DVSA that it is applicable at roundabouts. Essentially, he'll have an email from his test centre, whatever it is, saying, yeah, it's applicable at roundabouts. But then there's this whole line of things saying, but you shouldn't really be doing it. And that situation, yeah, it's very slow, but there's no need to give way to the pedestrians. There's no official literature anywhere that tells you to stop for pedestrians waiting to cross at roundabouts. In fact, Rule 187 just says to watch out for them, give plenty of room. And that's what I did there. So that's one you have to watch out for is the lady approaching had a right signal. And it says, regardless of whether they should or should not be doing a U-turn at a mini roundabout, there was no road on my left there. But I saw her right signal. I thought, right, well, I need to give way to her. If she does decide to do a U-turn, it's not illegal. It's advised that you should not do it. But she still has priority over me. So I gave way to her. So essentially, look, if we sum that up, if you have a car coming towards you at a mini roundabout with a right signal, give way to them. It's that simple. Cars from your right, look, no one gets confused, but when cars are opposite each other at mini roundabouts, people have problems. The next traffic light junction I'm approaching used to be a mini roundabout and it had so many problems they turned it into traffic lights. and it was just that it was unnecessary. Admittedly, it was very hard getting out of the side road at rush hour because, of course, a main road will flow more than a side road. That's really the real reason that they did it. But there was always problems there. It just came down to lack of knowledge. If you've got two cars opposite each other, there is a priority. If you go in different directions, like left and ahead, it's kind of like a crossroad. You're not going to meet each other, so it's okay. Then if you're going right, you now are coming around from the right of someone else, so they should give way to you. That's the reason for the very simple line in the DVSA Official Guide to Driving: look out for people coming towards you that are turning right, give way to them. I remember this one on the Disc Community page, again, I had it years ago. There was a guy that said, because that's what I pointed out when someone was pointing out some errors that had been made, and someone said to me, you haven't got a clue how a mini roundabout works. Signalling doesn't give you priority. Now, there is, of course, a rule in the highway code that says exactly that. Signalling doesn't give you priority. But, there's a big but, the way you're going does give you priority. So if you're signalling that you're turning right, you don't have priority because of your signal. You have priority because of the way that you are going. So we get rid of that one. So if you've got two cars opposite each other, we now understand the priorities. Putting your wheels on first does not give you priority. It is a horrendous attitude to have. If everyone did it, there would be more crashes. I think, just to quickly analyse the one I said I was going to, which is the one that wasn't awful, and you hear me say to my learner it wasn't awful, which is this one.
You got it.
Right, stop.
That's not awful.
No, but I've
yeah.
got a right signal.
Yeah.
Now, but I wouldn't have emerged, and I'll tell you why. I teach my learners that we don't trust anyone. Most people around you are going to be good. Genuinely, like I said before, I don't believe that the driving standard is bad. I believe generally as a whole it's good. The trouble is that the bad ones will stick out in your mind. Now, if I was that car coming towards us and I've seen the right signal, the reason I would not emerge, because if we didn't follow Driving Basics 5 going around the centre circle, there would have been a problem. There would have been probably a near or a collision. That did highlight very nicely one of the main reasons that you should always be going around the centre circle of a mini roundabout, not just because it's the law, but it will actually avoid a lot of the problems that people have at mini roundabouts. But if we hadn't, like I said, if we hadn't gone round the centre circle, we would have had a problem there, and that's why I would not have emerged. And if you did that on a driving test, the examiner would have given you a driving fault for junctions observation. Because the way they work it, again, it comes off expected outcomes, and they look and go, well, I wouldn't have gone then. So therefore it goes down as, is that not worthy? Is that a driving fault? And I think you'd have very likely got a driving fault. You wouldn't have failed. But these two, the Mini and the, what was it? The other car, I can't remember what it was now. These two here, they would have both failed the driving test. Very likely would have had the dual control activated. And the last two that have put the brakes on last minute, they again would have got driving faults. If there's anyone close behind them, they very likely would have failed their driving test because the sudden braking is unpredictable to follow. So that's the things I would be considering. Get rid of those two myths. Cars opposite you don't have a priority, there is. And putting your wheels on first gives you priority. No, horrendous attitude. Get rid of those two things. Combine that with going around the centre circle. You will never have a problem at a mini roundabout. Literally never. They're very simple. But that is Driving Basics 16, mini roundabout priorities. I'll see you for the next one.